Hello, thank you very much, Jaroslav, for inviting me again to this extraordinary town of Prague and to this wonderful stage here in this on and offline conference, which is in itself, I think, one of those innovations. We are living in extraordinary times. What do we have to do? How are we going to make the change? And how is the world, our world, looking like afterwards? All what you've talked about here is about basically changing and adapting. And this is, I think, what is at the core of the whole situation we are in, both in regards to external world, the COVID pandemic, the climate change, but also to the industrial change we are living in, where the digitalization impacts our lives. My name is Chris Vaagt. I'm by education lawyer and history of art. So my perspective is a bit different. I became a lawyer, a company consultant first in Paris in France in 1990, and then I became a lawyer in 1995 before switching back to consultancy and deciding to take law firms and legal departments as my target group, my clients. And so I will talk today about what is said strategic imperative, and the biggest strategic imperative is understanding that what we are going through is a process of change. And the business case is the question, what is the business of law, in which we are all in? How does it impact us, and what we do so that the business of law can evolve without losing its core competence and its core proposal? Everything we are looking at here is change. And it was very funny for me to see that the document automation which is presented here reminded me of my work as a lawyer in 1995. We had a program called Pharaoh, which as a name itself is funny. And what I had is I needed, whenever I wanted to produce a paper, a writ, a contract, a claim for a court proceeding, I would look up in a book, push F5, put a number to it, and ready was my document. That was 1995. So you will probably, we didn't call it document automation, but it probably was. And this company went down the drain because it missed the technology change from DOS to Windows 95. So out they went off the market. So everybody, not just lawyers, not just legal departments, but also technology companies like these ones, are in front of the need to change and to adapt. And indeed, the technology is one of the drivers, not the only drivers, but one of the important drivers. So let me take you through shortly to these four phases of change, which we are all going through whenever we are faced with severe change. One of these situations which we are all experiencing right now is the COVID. And it was surprising to see how quickly could we adapt. Why? Well, you know this example of the frog, which you throw into hot water and he jumps out immediately because otherwise he would die, and he senses it immediately. And then if you put him into cold water, he will stay there, and if you then warm up the water, he will die. So the COVID is the first example. The climate change is the second example. I don't know where this technology thing is. Digitalization in itself is something which brings about a big upheaval in industry. And still, if you look, for instance, up in YouTube, there's a speech done by Richard Susskind, one of the apologists of change in the law industry, he said he expected the end of lawyers by 1995. So there's a huge overestimation of what technology actually changes and how then the industry itself adapts. And what does it mean for us? The English have a very nice word for it. They call it relatedness. The relatedness of organization, which makes change being slow. So if you look at the first phase of these 4 spaces everybody of us is going through when confronted with change, the very first phase is you feel good. You don't see the need to adapt. You don't accept that you need to change. Why? Because you're in control of things. Your day is organized. You go into the office, you know exactly what time you need from home to office. You work in the office or whatever you do, and you know exactly how to organize your paperwork and your emails and whatever, your communications with others. And you know how to produce results. And in the evening, you know when you need to go home, and you know the way it takes you to go home. And you know it, you've got a house and it's warm inside. So all this is good, okay? You feel comfortable. And then somebody tells you there's climate change. Why did you not put solar panels on your roof? And then there's the COVID, and people tell you, why don't you put on a mask? And then there's technology, and people ask you, why don't you change your processes? I mean, it's a no-brainer in terms of efficiency gain to use technology to have quicker processes. As I just explained to you, in my experience, it's about 25 years ago. Okay, so this very first phase is you do not want to change because everything is fine. And then comes the second phase, and the second phase is neglect. Although you know that you have to change, although the lawyers know in the law firm, although the legal department lawyers know they have to, everybody knows he has to change, nobody does it. They come with excuses. Yeah, the other ones need to. Climate change, yeah, they have fires in California, but not in Prague. COVID, yeah, the old people, they die. I don't buy. I'm below 60. Okay? And technology is same, okay? Yeah, law is special, you know. Law is a particular business. We don't need these process innovations, automations. Every case is special, okay? And this is also the phase, and that's very dangerous indeed, where all these conspiracy theories come in, because it allows people to find an excuse not to change. Okay? And in my view, it is to be taken very seriously. And it is to be taken, when these arguments come up, it is about arguing with people. Try to find a way to convince them why they are trying to build a kind of fake environment, fake mindset. But it is important, and it actually is very emotional. You see the people demonstrating out there against COVID measures like putting on face masks. What the heck are they doing? Are they serious? They have their opinion, yes, but basically they don't want to change. And the third phase then is people realize that they have to change. People start changing, and still they're not happy. They mourn the past. They are unhappy, and they always find something which does not work perfectly, and therefore they pretend that the solution is not good. Especially the technology providers in this room know the story about this. You know, these lawyers, yes, it's not bad, but, you know, there is certainly a but in the room. And then they come up with any kind of functionalities which is totally out of usage, but still they find it important. And this is a situation where people are actually vulnerable. They want to be comforted. They want to see that others do it as well. They want to see that it works. They want to see the advantages. They want to be convinced. But they're vulnerable because they're still in a situation, in a mind of tristesse, if you want. So, and then comes the fourth phase, and that's so funny. The fourth phase is everybody's happy again. And everybody claims, yeah, I mean, it's obvious, right? It's obvious that I buy an electric car. I mean, I'm not a silly guy using a car with combustion motors, combustion engines. Of course I have solar panels on my roof. I mean, I'm not so silly. And technology, everybody's using it, and it's the most obvious thing in the world. And you wonder. And looking back, you simply need to understand, in my view, when you look at all what is happening here in our lives and in this industry, it is very much about taking seriously these emotions. Change is about taking serious these emotions of parties involved. They are real, and they are the drivers. They are important. And my work as a consultant to law firms and lawyers, in general, is about comforting people, helping them to settle in, helping them to understand, helping them to realize that these emotions are important, but they are just helping them to be related in a process where they miss opportunities. And my work then with law firms is very much, usually a 2 days workshop, for instance, you know, we start in the morning and everybody's saying, oh, it's such a bullshit, etc. And after the second day, everybody say, it's obvious, isn't it? So you carry them through all these emotional states and take them seriously. And the end result will be that they have adapted. And I think for all of us, it's important to realize that we are basically all in a business of change. Also a lawyer who has to tell his client that he needs to change his behavior or needs to do process differently because otherwise he would be not compliant, whatever. All this is about change. And when we then look at the business of law, what is the business of law about? What's the driving force for lawyers? Is it to make money? I mean, the simple assumption would be when you look at introducing technology, therefore process improvements and efficiency, that everybody would agree. So why don't lawyers always agree? Maybe it's not just about money. We know by psychological studies that it is important for lawyers that they contribute to society, that they uphold the rule of law. This is an inner, intrinsic motivation of these people, which cannot be ignored. And a simple, logical business argument might not be sufficient to convince them in a serious phase of change. But you also need to look, how can it help you in your job as a lawyer? How can it help you to be to contribute to society at large? All these elements, I think, contribute. So it's not about serving clients only, but serving society, and therefore lawyers have got all these privileges. And if you're frank, they have a brilliant business model. The partnership business model is an extremely sleek organization turning out high profits. And there's a lot of envy around lawyers. But basically, they work 50, 60, 70 hours a week, in my experience, and they are well paid for it, appropriately paid for it. And therefore, it's not about changing the law firm or complaining about that they are not innovative enough or whatever. It is about taking them seriously in the job and in their motivation to deliver legal work. So where does it get us to? First of all, I think we need to admit the world at large is in turmoil. Everybody of us is somewhere affected very strongly by one of these mega trends, one of these mega events. As I said, climate change and putting on a mask, COVID, and also digital transformation of society. So Now, in addition comes political upheaval, and my general assumption would be it is about the corrupt versus the non-corrupt people. It is about ethical and unethical behavior. It is about trust and mistrust in society. And I wonder what our contribution to this is, because I believe that change will be adapted only if we also take into account these elements. So my take is, what is our contribution here? And how do we help people adapt and change? And my personal conviction is you need both humility and respect for these lawyers who do the work which is so essential in society. If you go to countries like Ukraine, where the lawyers are the only ones you can still trust, and even that probably only 50%, to countries just around here of Czechoslovakia, whether you look to Poland or you look to Hungary, wherever, where the legal environment becomes so infected. And therefore, I believe that whatever you do, whatever we have as a job, in these process of change, let us stay and let us try to do it in a way which actually helps the lawyers to do a better job. Thank you.